tonight. You won't sleep alone. Not because you don't want to, but because in the 1600s, sleep wasn't private, peaceful, or even particularly clean. So pull the blanket, tit, because what's snoring on your left might not even be human. Hey, welcome it. It's late. The wind taps at the shutters. And tonight we're slipping beneath a coarse woolen blanket that smells faintly of old smoke, damp timber, and cold air snakes in through the wooden shutters. And your mattress. It is not much of a mattress at all, just a loosely sewn sack of hay that scratches more than it soothes. Well, something your cousin shouldn't have eaten. You're wedged between a snoring uncle, a restless child, and your stat's a goat. Maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's breathe in the night air, cool, heavy, a little musty. You're not in your bedroom anymore. You're in a time when darkness held secrets, and sleep came in two parts. You're just hoping your toes stay warm and your brother doesn't elbow your nose again. Back then, more bodies meant more warmth even. The night soundtrack is a mix of wind moaning through the shutters, mice scratching behind the walls, and someone coughing nearby. Sleep wasn't quiet. It was a compromise, a surrender to exhaustion amid the chaos. Intimacy is a luxury. Tonight's real romance is between you and that half-warm brick tucked under your feet. Windows barely open, every bit of warmth is hoarded. The smell lingers. Smoke from the cooking fire, damp wool, bodies, old candles. Maybe our bodies just responded differently in the absence of artificial light. Maybe it was the rhythm of daily survival. But back then, waking up in the middle of the night was expected. It wasn't insomnia, it was just night. Do you really want to get up to face the cold floor? You've worked all day hauling, stitching, walking, milking, chopping. Sleep comes not easily, not perfectly, but it comes. No phones, no screens, no scrolling, just labor. And that kind of weariness, it wins. The noises fade, the aches dull, and slowly, like a candle flickering down to its last breath, you fall into the first sleep. The night is long, and the comfort is minimal. It's not fresh, it's historical. The average sleeper of this era, they slept with hay dust in their nose and maybe a few bugs, crawling over their ankles, fleas, lice. But here's the twist. You're not sleeping through the night. Not like modern sleep. In the 1600s, sleep came in stages. The occasional bedbug. Sleep came with ... roommates. Somehow it's the 17th century, and sleep is something you share, like stories, bread, and body heat. It starts a few hours after dark when the chores are done, the fire is low, and the prayers are said. It lasts maybe 4 hours. Then, almost without fail, you'll wake. Religion wasn't just part of life, it soaked into every hour, including bedtime. Darkness was seen as dangerous, spiritually risky, the devil's hour. So you whispered a psalm, maybe a charm, something to shield you from what moved in the shadows. The fire's been out for hours. The hearth is dark. Maybe you imagined candlelit evenings with a lover or noble silence in your private quarters. But here, before we huddle deeper into history, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if these slow, strange journeys through time help you unwind. And drop a comment. Where are you tuning in from? And what time is it there right now? Now then, dim the lights. Let your screen flicker like firelight. You pull the quilt tighter. It's not soft, not thick, just a single itchy layer trying its best. There's no heater, no electricity, no rice bag from the microwave. If you were lucky, you heated a brick by the fire before bed. Now it's cooling rapidly at your feet like a stone that gave up trying. Your mattress creaks a crude sack of straw. Unless you were wealthy enough for feathers. You're not alone either. Beds were shared, family, servants, even strangers in some cases. A personal bedroom for every person. That's a modern fantasy. If you lived in the countryside, you might not just share your room with people. Chickens might roost in the rafters, a pig might grunt in the corner. You breathe in, the air's thick, but somehow you settle in. You've tucked your limbs close. Maybe you've even found a little peace. What you're entering now, this is just the beginning. The first sleep. Historians still debate why. Was it biology, culture? And before this first sleep, you'd often pray. The fire's out now. Someone nearby stirs. Maybe you do too. Your full bladder is negotiating with your frozen toes, but your body is tired. Not just mentally tired, bone deep, muscle sore tired. You don't yet know you'll wake again. For now, the weight of the blanket and the sound of someone shifting beside you is all there is. You stir not, jolted awake, not alarmed, just gently parted from sleep as if your body knows something your mind doesn't. The darkness hasn't shifted much. Maybe there's a faint ember still clinging to life in the hearth, or a thread of moonlight peeking between warped wooden shutters. But your eyes are open now. Your breath is calm. You're simply aware. This moment might seem unusual to us today, but for you here in the 1600s, it's not strange at all. This is the pause between the halves of your night. Yes, clocks exist, but they're rare, expensive, and largely ornamental for most households. Time is felt, not counted, just awake. Was segmented sleep, purely biological, how the body behaves when freed from artificial light. Or was it shaped by the culture of the time-scarce candles, rigid schedules, shared homes? The answer might be both. Floorboards stretch and groan somewhere above. The hearth smells faintly of soot and cooling iron. A trace of yesterday's supper still lingers in the air, mixed with wood smoke and wool. In modern experiments, when people are removed from all electric light, they often fall into this exact rhythm to sleeps, with a waking gap in between. All across Europe, others are awake in this hour too, and no one finds it odd. In fact, some embrace it. Every flame costs something, so when evening comes, it comes hard. Others use the time to tend the fire, fetch water, or simply step outside into the stillness. Prayer manuals and religious texts from the period often recommended middle-of-the-night worship. The darkness was seen as spiritually vulnerable, and so prayers whispered in this hour were considered especially potent. Kneeling beside the straw mattress, many muttered psalms to shield against dreams, sin, or unseen dangers. For most, sleep is less about comfort and more about survival. Rest is how your body recovers from a life of cold air and hard labor. There is no set rule, no precise moment, just rhythm flow, a kind of night song only your body remembers. There's no alarm clock waiting to scream you into motion, no sunrise emails, no school runs, just this pause. In England, first sleep and second sleep. Across languages and cultures, the pattern echoed like a shared secret. It has a pocket of silence between two halves of night, a sacred pause in the labor of living. But what do you do in this hour? That's your own private ritual. And in centuries past, what people chose to do in this dreamy interval may surprise you. And the world, for one quiet moment, is holding its breath with you. Yet here's the twist. No one expects to sleep straight through. Even early medical guides, with all their awkward, fumbling language, acknowledged that this hour between sleeps was often when couples reached for one another quietly, sleepily, without expectation. After sunset, the world dims fast and early, and with little else to do, you retreat to bed not out of fatigue, but out of necessity. Your day ends not because of a calendar notification or the glow of a phone screen, but because the light has vanished, and with it, your ability to do anything more. In summer, it might be only a short interlude, but always, it returned, this gentle awakening, like a breath between heartbeats. Well, let's say the hour had more earthly uses, a time so natural, so expected, that no one even questions it. Sleep, in your world, follows the rhythm of the sun. Candles and lanterns exist, but they're precious. Beeswax is reserved for the wealthy. The rest of the world makes do with smoky tallow. And so, your first sleep begins, often just after 8 or 9 p.m. when the fire dims and the house falls quiet. After 3 or 4 hours, you wake not startled, not groggy. Historians have wrestled with this idea, and now here you are, lying still, in that quiet in-between. You listen. A dog barks in the distance. You're not alone. If you can read and you own a book, you might reach for it now. Some keep a rushlight for this exact moment. In many homes, this waking period has a name, the watch, or the interval. And what people did with this time, that's where it gets interesting. You shift slightly, adjusting the thin blanket. For some, this interval was a time for devotion. And for others, some physicians of the time believed this waking moment was the ideal window for intimacy. The body was rested, the mind clear. The length of this interval changed with the seasons. In the winter, it could stretch to nearly 2 hours. You curl slightly under the covers. The body next to you shifts sore. Perhaps they already had their moment of wakefulness and returned to sleep. In France, they called it premier sommeil. There's still time left, hours, even before the rooster calls you back to duty. But we'll talk more about that soon. The fire is dark. The shutters rattle softly. So now you lie there somewhere in the quiet middle of the night. But this isn't that restless, anxiety-laced, modern way. You're not doom-scrolling under your blanket or questioning your life choices at 3:07 a.m. This pause in your sleep isn't an accident. It's by design. Your mind is aware. Your body's still warm beneath the scratchy wool. The world beyond the shutters is unchanged, still dark, still hushed. Maybe the fire has surrendered its last glow. Maybe the embers pulse faintly. Or maybe you imagine they do. The air remains cool still, but you are awake. Naturally, peacefully. This is the intermission. First, sleep has passed. Everyone from peasants to poets understood it. You sleep once, then stir, then sleep again. No one questioned it. It was as natural as breaking bread. Back then, no one would have called this insomnia. This was sleep divided, expected, and embraced. A spouse, a sister, a farmhand, whoever they were. You'd talk, quietly, casually, maybe about a strange dream, maybe about tomorrow's tasks, maybe about nothing at all. Evenings were brief and practical, clearing dishes, checking livestock, darning torn sleeves, maybe mending a tool in fading candlelight. A quiet hour that belonged to no one but you. Not too tired, not too groggy, the body refreshed, the mind clear. This was a useful time. Fires were stirred, chamber pots emptied, livestock checked, candles lit. if needed. Some people rose and wrote letters, others read from worn books by a flickering rush. In monasteries, the devout were required to wake for matins, their midnight prayer. Courting couples slipping quietly across muddy roads to meet in haylofts or shadowed kitchens. No glowing phones. He believed it was good for his lungs and pleasing to the knees. He wrote, first dreams were thought to reflect the world earthy, but second, sleep dreams. Those came after the pause, after the prayers, after the body settled back into slumber. Those dreams were called spiritual, yet including its fluids. According to medical theory of the day, urine was a key to health. But you can imagine it lying in stillness while the wind murmurs beyond the walls, your thoughts drifting in soft, half-lit circles. Chaucer mentions it in the Canterbury Tales. Legal records describe people waking from their first sleep. No one explains it. No one had to. It was part of life. Maybe your dreams do shift, grow deeper, stranger, more luminous. Morning samples were prized, but a mid-sleep inspection could offer useful insight. And second sleep, so if your neighbor was clinking around with the chamber pot at midnight, don't assume it was just business, it might have been science. And some worked too hard to notice when one sleep ended and the next began. But the shared experience of interrupted restental, expected and sacred held strong. Historians still debate whether this was medical wisdom or just eccentricity, but either way, it paints a strange and wonderful picture. No GPS, just memory, moonlight, and adrenaline. To connect without being pulled by a screen, a schedule, or a storm of digital urgency. A space for dreams and breath, for warmth and memory. A lost ritual of night. And so many couples, across generations, embraced this moment not with urgency, but with warmth. In fact, to sleep straight through the night without waking might have seemed a little odd, or unhealthy, or even spiritually negligent. Dinner wasn't a feast, likely pottage bread, perhaps salted meat or cold root vegetables. This space between sleeps wasn't seen as useless. It was a gift, so what did people do during this gentle pocket of time? Many stayed right where they were, lying in the dark, thinking. Others prayed. In an age when faith touched every corner of life, this moment was sacred. Prayer manuals often encouraged wakeful worship. Rise in the quiet of the night and lift thy voice to heaven. This was your private vigil, your soul's soft conversation with the divine. Some spoke in whispers. If you shared a bead and most people did, you might turn to the person beside you. And then there were those other nighttime activities. Historical physicians, in their perfectly awkward buttoned-up fashion, often noted this interval was ideal for intimacy. But not every midnight moment was about prayers or passion. And in villages, well, things got more interesting. There are records thin and scattered, but persistent of people using this time for secret visits. One diary from the late 1600s tells of an old man who used to walk brisk laps around his home during the wakeful hour. Some folk even believed the body revealed itself best during this time. And then there's the matter of dreams. Some believed that sleep, broken into halves, gave rise to more meaningful dreams. Who knows if that's true? This rhythm of two sleeps appears again and again in the writings of the time. Of course, there were exceptions. Not everyone followed the pattern perfectly. Some rose early, others slept late. And strange as it may sound, there's something about it that still resonates. Something soft, something human, a moment to think, to feel. But let's not drift too far into nostalgia. The wind still scratches at the shutters. The fire has fully surrendered. It's waiting. You shift slightly beneath the worn weight of your blankets. A quiet rustle in the hush of a room gone cold. The fire is long dead, now only a faint scent of wood smoke lingers in the air. The shadows stretch wide across the walls, long and lazy, while a slow breath escapes your lips in a ghostly puff. You're not newly awake. You've been like this for a while, now half resting, half listening, somewhere in that liminal space between dream and day. This is no accident. This is the waking hour. It's a few hours past midnight, and your husband's snores rise like a gentle tide across the straw mattress. You blink into the darkness and reach instinctively for the sewing basket by the bed. If you awoken, one preacher wrote, it is the Lord waking you for his company. Some knelt beside their beds, fingers numb against cold stone floors, murmuring Latin or psalms with eyes half closed. Neighbors exchanged quiet words, shared scraps of food, passed news by firelight. It was a time for secret sand, sometimes for love. Young lovers, wrapped in cloaks in rebellion, stole into each other's homes under chaperones, pretended not to notice or did their best to prevent it. In some towns, families kept a brass pan warming in the embers by the hearth, not for their own beds, but for any nighttime guest who might arrive cold and shivering. Romance, it turns out, came with hot coals and woolen socks. Others simply lay still, thinking of heaven and hoping it was listening back. In town bakeries, apprentices were already stirring from their slumber, hands deep in flour, preparing dough for the morning rush. Midwives, ever on call, moved through shadowy homes to assist births that so often began in this image, by the knowledge that not every hour must be busy to be meaningful. Second, sleep is close now, curling around you like a warm promise. In quiet corners, scholars lit their ink-stained desks and scribbled thoughts they dared not share in daylight. And in one peculiar Italian household, the family cat was trained to gently pour its master awake at just the right hour, so he could journal his dreams before they faded. The rushlight hisses faintly as you relight, its thin flame stuttering to life like a whisper of time itself. Modern researchers now call it segmented sleep, a pattern that may have been more normal than we realize, but for those living it, there were no terms, no debates, just a knowing. This time belonged to them. You squint, thread the needle, and begin. The wool is rough. The air smells of peat smoke and old linen. To the boys staring at the rafters, wondering if the world beyond the fields was real. To the monk rising for matins, feet chilled on stone, voice rising with the smoke. To the lovers, the poets, the dreamers. But a few carefully patched shirts now could mean the children will be warmer when frost creeps in at dawn. Strange, isn't it? In a world before digital clocks, before midnight meant deadlines or doom, this moment between sleeps was ... expected, and oddly enough, a quiet chapter that belonged to no one but you, or the merchant's son passing through asleep in the corner by the fire. In this house, beds are shared and privacy is a story told by the rich. But despite the creaking boards, the snores, the occasional scent of damp wool and old onions, the moment feels untouched. Suppose you're the wife of a small farmer tucked deep in the English shires, or perhaps you're a shepherd, wrapped in a heavy cloak, stepping out beneath the night sky just beyond the edge of a Scottish village. Your boots crunch over frosted grass, the sheep barely stir, but you still check the gate, test the latch, run your fingers through the wool of the ram closest to the fence. Above, the stars wheel across the heavens in silence. No engines, no noise, but your own breath, fogging in the dark. It's not just routine, it's ritual. Many use this time for prayer. It wasn't a chore, but a conversation, soft words whispered into the hush, carried up by candlelight. And then there were the visitors. Believe it or not, in some sleepy corners of Europe, this hour brought soft knocks on back doors, cloaked figures slipping across cobblestone lanes. In Scandinavia, there was even a name for it, nattavandering night wandering. But this hour wasn't all whispers and kisses, it was practical, too. It was a moment of rare mental clarity, unhurried and untouched by expectation. It belonged to the woman patching holes in stockings before frost set in. And maybe to you. You listen now carefully. Someone beside you turns in their sleep, letting out a soft grunt. It could be your brother or your uncle. This isn't insomnia. It's not anxiety. It's a rhythm yours. A rhythm shaped by candlelight and calm, by stillness and breath. And soon, very soon, that soft pull will return the heaviness in your limbs, the drifting in your eyes, the fog gathering again at the edges of your thoughts. But not yet. Not just yet. You have a few moments more. Moments to feel, to think, to be, and when sleep returns, it will not feel stolen. It will feel earned. And then, slowly, quietly, the weight returns. It begins almost imperceptibly, a blink that lingers too long, a breath that deepens without reason. Your limbs grow heavy, not with exhaustion, but with surrender. The stillness of the hour wraps itself around you, again, softer now, more tender. A second yawn curls out of you, and this time, it finishes. Welcome to the second sleep. This isn't the awkward tumble into slumber that came earlier. This is deeper, calmer, warmer, not just because your body has finally adjusted to the cold or because the fire has long since flickered out. It's warmer because your mind has loosened its grip. The outside world no longer presses at the edge of your thoughts. You are letting go willingly. In many homes, this was the sleep that truly mattered. The sleep of dreams, the sleep of spirit. While the first stretch of the night was about shedding fatigue, scraping off the sweat and ache of the day, second chapter was something else entirely. This was the sacred part, the hidden part, the part where the soul might stir while the body rests. Some believed this was when the most honest dreams arrived, a time when answers came not loudly, not obviously, but quietly enough that only the still-hearted could hear them. First, sleep was for the body. Second sleep, they said, was for the heart. The dog, curled against your legs, twitches now and then in his own dream. Someone near you exhales in that slow, rhythmic way that says, their mind is long gone from this room. You're not alone in this quiet descent. A 17th century diary, its ink now browned with age, records a single strange line in the margins. Mothers with infants barely knew what uninterrupted sleep felt like, and travelers, poor travelers, might only get half a night beneath unfamiliar roofs. There is something more vivid here, not the frantic flashes of modern REM sleep, not the jumbled movie scenes we forget by breakfast, but a slow, unfolding presence. A message, a moment, your hands are unclenched, your eyes closed, now stay closed. Saw a tree of fire in my dream, none burned, but all was warm. The wind outside is gone still, and for the first time tonight, your body offers no resistance. What does it mean? Who knows? But in that moment, as you slip deeper, you begin to understand what the writer might have felt. Another tale, passed down through German parish records, tells of a woman who swore her second sleep brought visions, not just omens or riddles, but practical things. Second sleep wasn't just a cultural quirk, it was a recognition that rest can be layered, carried not toward a finish line, but toward a middle space, somewhere you don't have to make decisions, somewhere no one expects answers, that the night doesn't have to be one long blur, that waking and sleeping can be partners, not enemies. One night a lost family heirloom, another the warning of an approaching storm, and once rather usefully the exact location of her missing butter paddle. It had fallen behind a barrel in the cellar. She found it that morning, and she wasn't the only one. In some homes, especially among the religious, second sleep was referred to as God's whisper. Your thoughts flicker out. You are not just sleeping now. But it wasn't always profound. Sometimes it was simply peaceful. Your family bedmates have stopped shifting. The coughs have ceased. You pull the blanket tighter around your chin. Not every night was this perfect. Not every home had the blessing of this second rest. Midwives might be called away. Farmers might rise to beat the frost. But tonight, for you, this moment exists. And in it, the quiet is different. It is not the silence of waiting or the tension of listening. It is the silence of being. Fully, gently, completely. Even the old beams of the house seem to hush now, stretching without groaning. Your spine has found its place. In this pause, this breath of human rhythm, there is room for things we rarely give ourselves. Reflection, imagination, permission. And now you are drifting, no longer pulled by thought, but floated by it. This is your second descent, the truest part of the night. And while the stars remain just where they were, and the frost has crept up the windows, and the embers have cooled the sure breath slows, you're gone, and the world will wait. Until morning, until footsteps, until birdsong. But for now, the universe small, warm, and wool-scented belongs to your dreaming self. You're still in it deep now, floating somewhere between the folds of warmth and the folds of your own subconscious. Second sleep is no longer something you're easing into. Its wraps you like a second skin. And the dreams, oh, they've taken a turn. 1 minute, you're helping a bishop bake pies using sunlight. The next, you're speaking fluent Greek while being chased by a sheep wearing boots. Now erase the memory, have the space, stuff it with straw or lumpy feathers, and surround yourself with other breathing, shifting bodies. Some snore like clogged chimneys. Some whisper to no one of them probably drools. And yet, this was normal. It doesn't matter how absurd it gets, this is second sleep logic. And here, it all makes perfect sense. A parent might be curled up at the foot of their bed. Pillows were often hard as fence posts and filled with grain husks or flattened straw. And yes, the iconic nightcap of floppy, oversized wool sock for your head wasn't just a fashion statement, it was survival. So when you ended up pressed against a cousin, or an apprentice, or someone you barely knew, nobody blushed, you were just trying not to freeze. You might share one with someone who had garlic for dinner. It was all very close. Not in bed usually, though usually he's doing a lot of work there. Occasionally, you'd wake to a squawk by your ear or a soft snuffling near your ankle. A toddler might be nestled between them. The whole family could be in one room, 2 beds if they were lucky. One tale from 1689 tells of a family dog that leaped off the bed barking, chasing away a would-be thief who tried sneaking in through a root cellar. One entry from 1674 paints the picture vividly. 7 people in 2 beds, and one poor child sleeping at their feet. Not beside, at their feet. That was bedtime. These were working animals with jobs to do even during your second sleep. Second sleep wasn't just rest, it was shared time. People told stories in the dark, hummed lullabies, whispered gossip, even cried quietly into someone else's shoulder. These weren't just beds. They were hearts of humanity. Not out of affection necessarily, but out of necessity. Families slept together. Apprentices bunked with their masters. Travelers shared with strangers. He opted for the floor. It was considered a reasonable decision. If you had a body and needed rest, you found a bed, and usually someone was already in it. You'll share the left side with a gentleman from Cornwall. He doesn't snore much. That was the welcome, no curtain, no introductions, just you, your bag, and someone else's breath. This isn't comfort in the modern sense. It's comfort in the survival sense. It's chaotic, but it's home. In the dream, you understand everything. Well, outside, the bed is full. 5, maybe 6 people lie around or beside you. Limbs brush, feet meet, someone shifts, and the whole mattress sighs like a tired beast. Privacy, that's a future concept. In the 17th century, sleep was communal. It had to be. A noble might have a chamber to themselves, but their servant likely slept on the floor nearby, ready to assist. You weren't alone. Beds were luxuries, and bedrooms even more so. So people shared. Think of your modern bed, soft, spacious, maybe memory foam. Even married couples weren't guaranteed privacy. One climbed in when the other climbed out. The bed never had time to cool. The pillow never got lonely. It was a silent handoff in the dark. You worked, you slept, you swapped places, and then There was hot bedding. Servants and shift workers, especially in busy households or inns, often shared the same bed but at different hours. If that sounds unsettling, you'll love this. Sheets were rarely washed, and in winter, you layered up like you were going to war. Long flannel shirts, thick socks, mittens, even cold air crept through floorboards and stone walls. Fires burned out by midnight. There were no radiators. But let's be clear, your bed might not be entirely human. Chickens often slept inside during the coldest months, roosting in corners or beneath benches. Goats were brought in to avoid wolves or thieves. Pigs too, and some families relied on animals for more than heat. Cats kept mice at bay, dogs stood guard. So yes, pets were allowed, but pampered? Hardly. Inns though, inns were their own beast entirely. Communal sleeping there meant being assigned to a bed with a stranger. A French traveler once described abandoning his spot after being paired with a man of such bulk and grunting that no peace could be found. And the upper classes, they had the illusion of privacy. Yet, for all the crowding and discomfort, something beautiful stirred between these layers of linen, bodies, and dreams. Here, in this tangled mess of elbows and warmth, you are part of something old and oddly tender. Someone sighs in their sleep. The nightcap slips halfway off your head, and still you rest. Because despite the itchiness, the closeness, the strange dreams and stranger sleeping partners, second sleep holds you. Not alone, but among others. And dawn, it's creeping closer, but not yet. You wake slowly, not all at once, just a slow blink into shadows so thick they feel like velvet. The air is still, heavy, no bird song yet. No clang from the distant chapel bell, not yet. But something inside you knows it's the in-between time. The mind lights up slowly, like the wick of a candle catching flame. Thoughts arrive uninvited, but gentle. The smell of bread rising, the ache in your heel where the boot wore thin, the gentle hour or two between first and second sleep. When your body rests but your mind stretches open. You aren't fully awake. You aren't truly asleep. You are watching time, thought, breath. And so are millions like you, all across 17th century Europe. The constellations you glimpsed earlier and whether they mean something. Maybe they do. Maybe they always have. Just the soft creak of old beams and a whisper of breath beside you. Someone shifts a sigh, a rustle, then silenced again. A corner of the blanket is pulled from you. You reclaim it. Instinctively, like a silent tug-of-war you've played 100 nights before. Sleep isn't over. Not just whispered stories and shared giggles, but the kind of closeness that bound couples through seasons. Old fertility guides even recommended the watch as the best time to conceive. One merchant from 1682 wrote that my best thoughts arrive when the house is still, and the stars peer in like old friends. He claimed to have solved trade routes and theological riddles while chewing a stale carrot during the watch. It might be true. It wasn't unheard of to wake and find a stranger halfway through your route cellar or halfway out. Why? Because the body had relaxed. The mind had softened, and no one was being stepped on by a child's foot. And that's when it begins. Not dreams, not wakefulness, but something stranger, quieter. Because right here you're in your watch. It was a pause gifted by the body to the soul, a breathing space between two tides of darkness. That's what they called it. A forgotten word for a forgotten rhythm. It wasn't dramatic, it was tender. When night became productive and time became currency, the watch faded, and slowly without noticing you begin to drift again. Two sleeps became one, a quiet rhythm lost to the thrum of industrial life. They didn't fear it. One weaver in Norfolk filled the margins of old ledgers with poetry during his watch, none published, but still preserved. Soft words carved in the silence between sleeps. Others slipped from the bed altogether, tiptoeing past, snoring kin to find a crust of pie or a sip of cool ale in the shadows of the kitchen. A mother humming a lullaby she hadn't sung in years. The watch became a theater of small stories, secret hopes, and things to quiet for daylight. You imagine yourself now creeping across a wooden floor, your breath fogging faintly in the chill, careful not to wake the dog who guards the stairs. They didn't fight it. They expected it. A dog huffs in its sleep, a chicken rustles in the corner, but inside you, a hush has bloomed. The kind of hush that only comes in this forgotten hour. Cherished it. Even this wasn't insomnia. This was design. A 1697 medical manual praised it as the watch which nature hath allotted, calling it essential for digestion of food. Yes, but also of dreams. So what did people do with this time? Anything that suited them. Some prayed soft murmurs under woolen blankets, lip-shaping psalms to no one in particular. Others still found warmth in each other. The midnight hour, it turns out, was prime time for intimacy. And then there were the thinkers, the quiet minds, the poets and scribblers, the candlelit philosophers. Even crime had its hour. Midnight thieves knew that people, deep in first sleep, were easy targets. A pantry window left open, but most of the time, families talked, whispers in the dark, jokes exchanged with siblings, dreams shared with your grandmother while she warmed your feet with hers. Some people journaled, others sewed by firelight. No one knows exactly when it ended. Some say it was gas lamps that ruined it. Others blame trains, factory whistles, or clocks that tick too loudly. But here, in this moment, you still have it. The house is dark. The air smells of cold ash and wool. You hear someone snore softly. You don't rush it. You lie there feeling your thoughts drift like boats across water. You hum a tune, barely remembering the words. You think of nothing and everything. The world fades. The shadows soften, and second sleep pulls you gently back into its waiting arms. You wake again, but softer this time. No creaking floorboards, no startled turns, just a slow breath and a weight in your limbs that says the night is almost gone. The light creeping through the wooden shutter isn't yet, but it's shy, like a child peeking through a curtain. Cold air nips at the edge of the blanket, and the hearth has surrendered, leaving only ash and silence, the kind of waking that doesn't snap, but hums. You stretch beneath your cover's rough wool, maybe fur or a patched linen quilt that has seen more winters than you care to count hands. You feel that unmistakable pull, just your body, the breath of your home, and the rituals quite humble that eased you into life again. This is the end of your second sleep, and if first sleep was a plunge, second sleep is a return, gentler dissolving, but time doesn't rush here, not yet. In the 17th century, mornings came with patience. No clocks glowing by your bedside, no buzzing devices or calendar alerts. And so you always start with listening, because relighting the fire isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Maybe you hear a cough from the next room, or the shifting weight of someone sitting up across the shared straw mattress, the scratch of a chicken just outside, the faint creak of rafters as the chill loosens its grip. All of it familiar, all of it soft. You reach for your linen shift-amp from the nightstew, but still yours, and pull it over your head. Then the outer layers. Coarse wool, maybe a leather vest, maybe nothing more than a patched apron tied by memory. Then comes what you've heard every morning of your life, the morning mumble. If you're lucky, there's rosemary water. If not, you'll tie it back and hope for the best. The bitterness burns slightly on your tongue, but it's familiar. It reminds you you've survived another night. You might whisper thanks for your health, for the roof, for your child's laughter, or for the neighbor's goat not getting stuck in the privy this time. It's not really a conversation, it's just a low thrum of voices, yawns and mutters. Your father clearing his throat. Someone arguing with a stubborn chamber pot. The inevitable negotiation about who'll fetch the first flame to relight the hearth. And let's be honest, it's not going to be you. That meant knocking on the neighbor's door, shivering and apologetic to borrow fire. A custom so normal, there were entire social etiquettes around flimbarring. If you borrowed too often, you were lazy. If you refused someone else's request, practically a war crime. It wasn't for everyone, but for some, it was the closest thing to a warm hug the morning had to offer. You burrow deeper into your blanket, hoping someone else draws the short straw. A dog pads across the room, nose to the floor. Someone else is already outside, hacking at firewood. There's no time to ease into the day, and yet, somehow, you do. In Mughal palaces, servants moved silently to prepare saffron milk. In a Chinese scholar's home, incense curled through the air, while Confucian lines were recited with sleepy reverence. In most homes, one coal was banked under ash, hidden and huddled like a sleeping child. If it went out overnight, a hunk of yesterday's cheese. If the mice were generous, the time when waking didn't mean jolting, when the body, not the bell, decided the day had begun. In wealthier homes, perhaps a sliver of salted fish or fruit poached in honey. But the fire eventually returns, it always does. The rim is chipped, the contents lukewarm, but it's yours. You just sit. The world will follow. But for a few final moments, you're allowed to linger. The hearth comes alive again, flickering and hissing, and the house breathes warmer. Shadows retreat. You rise not with grace, more with a grunt. The rope bed creaks as you swing your legs down. The floor bites with cold. You finger comb your hair. No mirror, no vanity, toothbrush, no such thing. Instead, you pick up your favorite willow twig frayed at one end and chew thoughtfully. And here, as warmth returns to your fingertips and the room begins to move with life, comes something strange and tender. A moment of prayer. It doesn't matter who you worship, or whether you do it all. This was a time when gratitude clung to the morning like frost on a window. Others around the world began their mornings in rhythm. Too, in Ottoman cities, the call to prayer echoed from distant minarets like a lullaby played backward. Whether out of faith or habit, these rituals stitched the soul to the body and the body to the day. But if you're like most people, you're not praying anymore. You're hungry. Breakfast, 17th century style, is, well, unpredictable. For most, it's a practicality, not a pleasure. A heel of bread soaked in weak ale, cold porridge scraped from the pot's edge. And then, yes, believe it, beer soup. Frothy, warm, and oddly comforting. It never quiets. Children whimper. Someone coughs into a rag. The floorboards hold conversations of their own. Because this morning, like all others, is built on small human rituals. Someone ties a shoe. Someone argues over water. Someone, probably you, shares a stool by the fire and warms their knees. It's not glamorous, but but it's real. This right here, the stretch before the storm matures, before the market, before the saddle is thrown on the donkey, this is what we've lost. You sip from a mug, and before the weight of the world lands squarely on your shoulders, before you speak too much, move too fast, or remember too many burdens. Still, present, human, because the sun is rising. The sun has climbed higher now, not loud or blinding, but quiet and dignified. It glides through the room, dust motes dancing in its path like drifting snowflakes caught mid. Your 17th century body knows the rhythm of the world, and it doesn't start on command, it unfolds. No blaring playlists, no icy commutes, just a fire crackling back to life. The creak of rope beds shifting, a kettle whispering toward warmth. You blink slowly and drink in the stillness. No alarms, no glowing screens, no morning headlines clawing for your attention. Just this golden hush. A child laughs, muffled through woolen scarves. The blacksmith's first clang rings across the rooftops like a morning bell, and someone yells half-heartedly at a wayward goat nosing at their herbs, like the day is breathing in before it speaks. You stir in your layers, but there's no rush. His sleep has been cut short. Prophet doesn't wait. His thoughts are already tumbling ahead. Bills, shipments, where the fog will slow the docks again. No alarm, no shouting, just movement in harmony with his home. He folds his bedding neatly. He faces east and bows to the sun. His second sleep dissolves into silence, barley tea, and the scent of thatch warming under the new light. You sip something, simple water boiled with herbs, or if you're lucky, weak ale warmed in an iron pot. The meal isn't extravagant. A coarse slice of yesterday's bread, a lump of porridge stirred with care, and maybe, just maybe, sweetened with a hint of apple or honey if the stores haven't run too low. He scrubs his face with cold water, mutters a prayer half aware, and shuffles into the next hour with stiff determination. Families rise as one soft footsteps on packed earth, gentle voices recalling the night's dreams. It's more like acceptance. You tie your sleeves higher. You tighten the knot around your waist. You press a kiss to a forehead, pass a jug to waiting hands, the kind that says, "This is the life I know. This is the rhythm I trust." These dreams aren't dismissed, they're weighed, considered a hunt foreshadowed, a warning whispered by ancestors. Second sleep carried meaning, and now, in the light of day, those meanings shape action. Everyone, from the old widow with her chickens to the young man trudging toward the mill, plays their part in this unspoken morning symphony. The family gathers around tiny cups, the bitterness softening into warmth as laughter and greetings pass between generations. The day officially starts not with urgency, but with intention. No need for a schedule. Your bones know what time it is. The day will nudge you forward, little by little. Outside, the village begins to murmur. Life doesn't scream itself awake, here it hums. A cart creaks somewhere in the lane. Hooves click softly on stone, not organized. Everyone, everywhere, waking in their own way, but all of them like you, part of this universal breath between night and duty. Not polished, its eyes are half-lidded, tail twitching like it knows a secret it'll never tell. The dog thumps its tail once, groggy but alert. Children begin to squabble over whose turn it is to carry the slop bucket, and just like that, the moment begins to dissolve. But deeply familiar. You notice things instead. The coolness of the floor underfoot, the smell of last night's ash mingling with wet earth, the comforting murmur of shared space. A sibling groans awake. Someone mumbles about firewood. You catch yourself smiling, not because the day will be easy, but because it's real. In this moment, you're not isolated. You're woven into a fabric. And still, you linger, because this in-between, this pause between rest and labor is more than routine. It's a ritual. Even now, you don't jump up. Let's stretch the lens a little wider. In a London townhouse, a merchant groans into wake. Meanwhile, halfway across the world in a Nida-period Japanese village, a rice farmer wakes with slow precision. So many lives, so many ways to rise. Now, back to you. The fire is stronger now thanks to someone braver than you who trudged out to fetch kindling in the half-light. The warmth reaches your fingers. Across the ocean, in an Iroquois longhouse, the day begins differently. Elsewhere in the Ethiopian highlands, a different morning begins. The sun gilds stone walls and smoke curls skyward as coffee beans are ground by hand. Coffee, even now, feels sacred. And here, in your small, quiet corner of the 17th century, you feel the pulse of this wider world. You glance toward the hearth where the household cat has curled into a smug little knot. You see boot knot out of sadness. You pull your cloak around you and move to the door. Not quite stepping outside yet, but listening, watching. The world is stirring in earnest now. One last breath, one final flicker of that early peace, and then the rhythm changes. The shutters are wide now. Morning light doesn't crash into the room, it pours, and like a whispered blessing, stretching across the old floorboards, catching on a discarded shawl or the glint of a pewter jug. You step into that light slowly, like someone crossing a stream barefoot. Something still clings to your shoulders like the final line of a half-remembered dream, or the soft weight of secondsleeps.com. It didn't come with blaring alarms or blue screen light. It came in layers. Slowly, thoughtfully, the mind was allowed to arrive before the body took over. People knew that. Or maybe they simply hadn't learned to forget. You're not all the way awake. And strangely, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. The air still clings to the hush of the night before, cold, damp, and gently uncertain. Outside, the cobblestones glisten with dew. You sit near a mosaic-tiled courtyard, feeling the warm hint of sun on your face. A shared meal, a moment to listen, a pause for breath. No rush, no obligation yet. Perhaps a servant glides past with a copper tray. Perhaps you've said your morning prayer. Time unfolds like a carpet here, deliberate and rich. In early modern Spain, the day bent differently. There were siestas and midnight meals, lazy sunlit pauses and late-night music. If the weather changed, so did the rhythm. A thunderstorm meant a longer morning. A snowfall meant staying under covers until the chimney soot stopped falling. Then a return to their straw-stuffed beds for the final act. Second, sleep. Small beer. They called it low in alcohol, high in nourishment, and far safer than most of the water nearby. There's no porridge waiting, just a pile of linen to wash and a lord with opinions. You fetch water, your empty chamber pots. You sweep floors that never stay clean. And yet, even in this grind, the spirit of second sleep lingers. The upper class might sleep in at midday and feast under but even they feel the slow drag of second sleep. They just call it something fancier. Your body begins to stretch toward motion, fingers stained with ink, hands busy with dough, arms brushing against sleeves, being rolled up for work. You yawn, someone yawns back. You mutter a dream half aloud. No one mocks you. On nights like those, sleep patterns were stories, not rules. First sleep, second sleep, third sleep, collapsed in a tangled heap of laughter and aching feet. You were leaping into emergency mode, chasing horns down the lane, muttering things that weren't exactly poetic. Others say it was simply the heartbeat of the day. Either way, waking wasn't something you did alone. It was a communal act, and in many ways it was beautiful. It tucks itself into your bones like a memory, a secret code of slowness in a world that will, soon enough, begin to race. It was a breakfast drink before tea and coffee staked their claim. And now, as daylight slips like incense between the arched windows, they arise once more, not rushed, not startled, but steady. They wash in silence. They pray with breath. They might even sip a thin beer with their crust of bread, the yeast tang like a hymn in the mouth. In a small town, they're also slick with life crumbs from a baker's sack, tracks from a donkey cart, maybe even the forgotten scuffle of last night's celebration. A rooster nearby and annoyingly proud lets loose a crow like it's composing a symphony for one. You give it a half smile. Let it think it matters. You're moving now, but not rushing. In this century, waking wasn't an act of violence. In certain corners of the world, that arrival became a kind of ceremony. Take the Benedictine monastery. For example, behind its stone walls cool still, echoing like a closed book, monks moved through the day like chapters, matins in the deep of night, lords just before dawn, Yesbia. Not a party trick, but a practical comfort. But now let's step out of that stone stillness and into a home near the Bosphorus. And here, the morning has its own perfume. Strong, sweet Turkish coffee is brewing somewhere, and its scent curls through the rooms like a silk ribbon. The second sleep ends, but not with a startle. It dissolves into ritual. Some scholars say religion in this age functioned like a timekeeper. But life, even in the 1600s, was not uniform. Not everyone rose like monks or merchants. Some slept by moonlight and woke by the cries of livestock. And when chaos knocks, your neighbor's cow broke loose, you weren't rising from second sleep. Then there were the festivals, the all-night feasts and awkward dances, the songs that slipped out after too much mead. Now imagine you're not a guest at that festival, but a servant cleaning up afterward. You've woken from your second sleep to cold floors and commands. Everyone's still shaking off the night, even the nobles, because luxury doesn't cancel fatigue, it just makes it velvet-lined. And so, time shifts again. The sun climbs, the birds shout louder, a baby cries across the street. Still, beneath it all, something from the night remains, the softness of dreams, the hush of early air, though knowing that your day began not with chaos, but with grace. You look across the lane, a chimney smokes steady now, you tie your sash, you step forward, and second, sleep. It doesn't vanish. But not just yet, not for a few more breaths, not until you're ready. There's a strange comfort in rhythm, not the rhythm of machines or clocks, but the soft, human kind, the kind that hums through the soles of your feet as you walk a well-worn path, or in the familiar creak of a wooden door opening at the same hour each morning. In the 17th century, routine wasn't chained to ticking hands or glowing screens. It moved with the sun, bowed to the church bell, and often curiously looped around your sleep. And now that you've stepped fully into your day, you begin to notice something subtle. The way your thoughts feel shaped by the night, not just by rest, but by that quiet space between rests, that peculiar pause between first and second sleep. It still lingers like breath on a cold window, because anyone demanded them, but because the night was still enough to listen. It's more than a memory of dreams. It's the mental clarity that came from waking in a world half asleep, the world asleep around you, your body at rest, but your mind calmly adrift. Diaries and letters from this era often hinted at a strange lucidity that visited people during the hours between sleeps. A candle flickers, its flame lazy in the still air. Maybe you step outside and breathe the chilled air. Maybe you take up a quill. Or maybe you just lie there, eyes open, thinking of the weather. For many couples, it was their only truly private time. A moment for intimacy. Yes, but also affection. Gentle words, quiet laughter, shared warmth before the labor of day returned. Not a flaw in the night, but a feature. In a world that asks so much of people, this pocket of stillness was something soft, something human. Of your family, of that one strange dream where your shoes spoke fluent Latin. No urgency to return to sleep, no demand to perform or produce. Just time. You'd rise softly, not jarringly, maybe light a candle. Some even solve practical problems in those hours. Mending tools, sorting herbs, counting coins, or just lying back and quietly thinking through the knots of the previous day. It's to the soft spill of daylight across the wall, to the stretch of your own arms, to the breath you take without hurry, like a secret. Let your eyes adjust to the dark, or to starlight sneaking through the wooden shutters, and you wouldn't feel groggy. You'd feel thoughtful still, sometimes even inspired. You're grinding oats, mending a frayed sleeve, maybe soaking beans for stew. These are slow tasks, meditative, and as you work, your thoughts drift like the steam rising from your mug. The second sleep is stirring behind your eyes, a naturally occurring pause for emotional honesty. Some call it natural meditation. Others debate whether it was restful or just endured, because there were no blackout curtains and no digital clocks. The room still hushed. The rooster, for once, has held his tongue. All is well. For many, this was the most creative moment of the day. No talking fish tonight, just slow rivers, familiar faces, maybe a memory of something that never happened. This is when letters were written, when verses spilled out in ink-stained whispers, when prayers drifted upward like smoke offered not. And sometimes, in that hush, two people might sit close talking in low voices, sharing ideas, memories, or simply the silence. Imagine it. Historians today wonder, was this time a gift of humanity? But for you, now standing in the rhythm of your day, the idea begins to make sense. You picture yourself on a straw mattress, the last warmth of the hearth glowing faintly across the room. You imagine swinging your legs over the edge of the bed. No, you never figured that one out either. There's another detail, a tender one. That quiet space between sleeps. Of course, the Puritans worried about it. They worried about everything, but others saw it differently, a divine rhythm, a sacred pause. Let's follow that rhythm now into the low kitchen of a country cottage. The candle is lit again, not for grandeur, just enough to see. You return to bed not with guilt, but with gratitude. The mattress is still warm, you settle deeper, let your limbs go slack. And this time, the dreams that come are heavy, dreamlike in a different way. This sleep is richer, more profound. It arrives not with exhaustion, but with welcome. And when you rise again this time for good it is, not to the shriek of an alarm or a blinking red light, you blink, you rise, thought by thought, step by step, and behind your morning eyes, in the gentle corners of your mind, a small piece of that quiet hour still lingers like a star behind the clouds. Second sleep didn't just lengthen your dreams, it deepened your life. And once again, the day begins, its quiet retreat. Tools are laid down with a clink. Ashes are stirred low in the hearth, across cottages, manors, and winding village lanes. The 17th century exhales not with relief, but with rhythm. You've done what needed doing, some of it. Well, some of it simply enough, and some of it not even yours to do, yet done nonetheless. This isn't the abrupt collapse we call bedtime today. It's something older. The shutters are open, and the last of the light touches the room gently, as if asking permission to leave. You step outside one final time. If you're in a town, the stone beneath your feet is damped with dew and age slick with yesterday and tomorrow. Somewhere, predictably, a rooster claims the moment with theatrical flair. Slower, a surrender with steps. No lavender oil, no soothing podcasts, no apps tracking REM stages and rewarding badges for staying asleep. You slept in segments, half lucid, half lua, entirely human. And now, the sun's fingers stretch longer across the floorboards. They reach for screens, for answers, but maybe it's not a flaw. Maybe it's a memory, a leftover ripple of something ancient, something truer, still whispering through your blood. You return to your chamber. There were times, yes, when sleep was patchy, when second sleep never returned, when first sleep refused to come. In summer, the heat pooled in your sheets, Clocks that told you not just the hour but how late you were. Factories demanding people rise, not with the sun but with a whistle. Perhaps it was all of it one collective push toward speed. It was meant to be felt, to be honored. In winter, the cold tugged at your toes like an impatient child. But this, too, was part of the agreement. You know, this dance by now. Time itself seems to soften around you. Not ticking, but settling like flour into a basin, like dust into beams of golden dusk. But a soft, full and hay like warm air off a field of dusk. Let it rise in your chest, then melt back into the dark. Easy, honest, unperformed. You smile and let it. No, you're not rested. Not by modern standards. There were no 8 hours cradled by ergonomic science. Not a heartbeat to chase, but allowed to fall into. The cooling hearth, the soft groan of beams settling into their joints. The breath of a home that breathes with you. And strangely, that was enough. You are still. You are allowed to release it all. The night gave you what it could a dream. A pause. A thought that lingered like perfume on old fabric. Let your thoughts unwind like thread slipping from a spindle. Sleep didn't obey, it conversed. The shadow of its glow dancing slowly across old stone. No emails, no pings, no alarms set. Just the quiet geometry of night returning around you. Historians will still argue about when this ancient rhythm began to fade. Was it gaslight, coffee? And in that rush, the pause was lost. Even now, centuries later, people jolt awake at 3 a.m. and panic. They call it insomnia. What if the night was never broken, just misread? So now, whether you're in a creaking cottage lit by a single taper, or in a city apartment humming with distant traffic, pause here. Let the night open again. Let it breathe. Let your rest arrive in pieces if it must chaptered like a favorite book. Let your waking be unhurried. Let your silence feel full. Because rest, like the lives we once lived, wasn't meant to be crammed into schedules. Now, take a breath. Not a functional one. Not the one you count while lying still. Willing sleep to come, your body is already listening. Let it go deeper. Let your jaw slacken, let your arms grow heavy, let your hands fall gently where they are, no longer grasping at anything. Imagine the candle flame still flickering faintly near the wall, and through it all, feel the rhythm. You are safe here. The chores unfinished, the questions unanswered, the tiny voice that tried to follow you into sleep. Let it dissolve. You are beyond the clock now, beyond the checklist. You are in the pause that came before everything sped up. Let your breath slow. Sleep. When it comes again, will not surprise you, because you've already begun the descent. You've already returned home. And as your breath slows, and your thoughts settle into the quiet folds of sleep, know that this moment, this soft slipping into stillness is a ritual shared across centuries. If tonight's journey through history brought you peace, if it helped you drift a little more gently into sleep, then let this be your invitation. Subscribe to the channel for more slow, thoughtful stories from the past. Tap the bell so the next time you can't sleep, we'll be waiting here with another tale. And if you know someone who might need a little rest tonight, share this story with them. Because everyone deserves a quieter night, a softer world, and a reminder that sleep has always been more than just rest. It's a return. Good night, and we'll see you again between dreams and dawn.